This is APYouthNet.
Hello and welcome back to the APYouthNet Talk Show, where we look at some of the key issues of youth employment in Asia and the Pacific. From the ILO Youth Employment Program, I'm Matthew Koniak. And I'm joined today for this second part of a show on HIV and AIDS at the workplace with Richard Howard from the ILO and Tung Bui from the organization, or the movement, should I say, Your Voices Count. In the first show, we talked about the role of young people, their preparedness, what they should know and be prepared for when entering the workplace and when they have HIV and AIDS. In this show, we are going to be talking about the role of the society at large, the UN, governments, employers, workers. Let's start with the UN. Richard, what resolutions, what recommendations exist out there that deal directly with the issue of HIV/AIDS in the workplace?
We have, in June 2010, the ILO passed Recommendation 200 concerning HIV/AIDS in the world of work, which basically is a labor standard which is meant to guide national level policies on HIV in the workplace. Some of the key principles in that standard is, one, that companies should not carry out mandatory testing. Two, the testing should not be done at any time against the consent of the worker. Three, that the workers with HIV should have confidentiality regarding their HIV status. Four, there should be some kind of accommodation if people need some kind of adjustment of their job because of their HIV treatment, days off, time off for visiting doctors, or just small adjustments in work flows that may be needed. And the most important one is that workplaces should make sure that workers have access to treatment. So if the government doesn't provide it or health insurance doesn't provide it, that the workplace also has an obligation to see that they get it, treatment.
And Bui, you mentioned just before the show that there were some other initiatives of the UN that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, United Nations now has like a special focus on youth issues, and a lot of international conference on youth issues has been conducted like last year. There's in December in Bali, they have the International Youth Global Forum, where like young people sit down together and we want to like identify what the key issues that we are facing and develop some kind of recommendations to what governments, UN agencies, and other stakeholders in terms of like addressing those issues and providing young people with like the best life that they can have. And decent employment again come up like one of the prominent issues that along the discussion. And in March this year, there's another international youth conference too. So I think that the decent employment for vulnerable groups such as like young people with HIV, it's gonna again brought out really strongly during the conference.
Well, that's the UN. What about national policies, government policies here in the region, or even in other regions that you think are worth mentioning?
Well, most countries in the region have developed national policies on HIV in line with ILO recommendations and standards. So I think we've done pretty good on policy coverage. We need to do a little bit better at implementation to see that they're not exceptions to the provisions that we have in place, that actually this kind of testing of people with HIV does not continue.
I just want to address this issue because we have a lot of national policies for HIV/AIDS, a lot of like initiatives for young people, but then we should have like a monitoring and evaluation system in terms of adaptation and the effectiveness of all those policies and all those like national guidelines on youth employment and HIV/AIDS. I just flag all governments, even United Nations, to join force in terms of like making workplace a safe, a nice, and a very productive environment for young people, especially young people living with HIV.
Because you're with the ILO and the constituents represent also the workers and the employers, how is it to work with workers and employers on this issue of HIV and AIDS?
I think, businesses, initially it was multinational companies that stepped in and developed policies and programs and set really a standard. But in the past 5 years, I think we see a lot of domestic, nationally owned companies in China, Thailand, throughout the region, which are doing the right thing on HIV. So a lot of progress has been made, actually.
But specifically, what can be their role? How can they better support young people in the workforce?
For young people in general, I think we need to recognize that employment really is essential for both prevention and for successful treatment and care programs for people with HIV. So on the employment side is prevention. If people have jobs, they're probably less likely to engage in some kinds of risk behaviors. We know that a lot of young injecting drug users in this region are actually unemployed, often well-educated, unable to get jobs, university-educated, unable to get jobs. And you do see that unemployment is an aspect of the kind of risk that people are engaged in. So on the prevention side, a youth employment strategy really makes sense. On the care and support and treatment side, people with HIV absolutely have to have jobs. They cannot survive just with ARV drugs alone. Everyone needs a job. So we need to make sure that policies and programs at all levels ensure the employment of people with HIV. So it means governments should have a policy on HIV that don't allow discrimination, that workplaces, companies at the company level should have a policy that replicates that kind of national policy, and that trade unions step in to reinforce the rights of people with HIV if their rights are denied. So there's a role actually for governments, for workplaces, and for trade unions to making sure that we have employment and jobs available for people with HIV.
Well, thank you very much. And just to finish the show, do you have a last message? Is there anything that you felt like you wanted to say, take the opportunity to send out to governments out there or to young people, workers and employers regarding the issue of HIV and AIDS?
I just speak on behalf of young people. Just be confident and believe in yourself and just fight for your rights at the workplace. Don't let anything pull you down because you're young, you're enthusiastic, you're committed, and you're talented. So just believe in yourself and try to claim all what you deserve to.
Well, thank you very much. And this ends our series of 2 shows on young people and HIV/AIDS at the workplace. Thank you so much for both of you. Richard Howard from the ILO, Tung Bui from the movement Youth Voices Count. And please remember to log on the APYouthNet for our next shows and for further information on www.apyouthnet.ilo.org. Join us again next time. Next week, we'll be talking about youth employment in post-conflict situation with a panel coming to us live from Afghanistan. Thank you very much and goodbye.
This has been an APYouthNet production.